back with my second ever Ruckcast. First one had good reception, so I'm going to keep these going. I've got my weighted vest on, I've got the Pennsylvania woods, and I've got Jupiter, one of my dogs. All right, so what are we talking about today? Today, the topic of conversation is the transition of finance from analog to digital. And what I mean by that, of course, it's a fancy way of saying transition from finance off-chain to on-chain to crypto. And if you watch this channel, you know that my thesis is that most, if not a large majority, of financial assets are going to move on-chain over the next few years. And this week, just the past few days, there's been a massive amount of news that this is starting to actually gain momentum, right? We say slowly then all at once. I think it's starting to accelerate, right? We're getting closer to the all at once part. So here's some of the news that's happened recently. Stablecoins. So one of the fastest growing asset classes in crypto, maybe one of the fastest growing asset classes in the world. They're gaining, I think, $5 billion in total market cap this week to a total of 242 billion. Just insane growth. And basically, here's what's happened recently. You have both MasterCard and Visa announcing that they're expanding their support for stablecoin payments. Visa, I think, was LATAM, MasterCard worldwide. May have gotten those reversed, but I'm pretty sure that's what it was. And this was just the past day. So over 100 million merchants that use MasterCard will have access to stablecoin payments. And then, simultaneously, you've got the bill for regulatory clarity in the US Congress right now. And then on top of that, you have Rumble being the YouTube competitor video app that doesn't censor. Rumble announcing they're building their own wallet in partnership with Tether. So it's going to be a Bitcoin and stablecoin wallet. And then on top of that, you have Athena being the third largest stablecoin and the largest crypto native stablecoin. Athena announced they're partnering with the TON blockchain to build their own wallet for stablecoins. TON, if you don't know, if you're not familiar, it's Telegram's blockchain. So they're partnering basically with Telegram, and it's a separate organization. I know, you can talk about the technicalities of it, but they're closely affiliated with Telegram, right? They're basically partnering with Telegram. Telegram, if you don't know, has 1 billion users. So it's actually one of the most used apps in the world. Messaging, news, groups. I mean, in crypto, it's, except for Twitter, probably the most used app in the world. So with stablecoins, we've got the perfect storm of supply, real usage growing, right? It's not just speculation. We've got regulatory clarity coming. We've got big distribution platforms integrating crypto stablecoin wallets. And then we've got expanded support for stablecoin payments. So we've got wallets, payments, regulatory clarity, supply. Basically, all the pieces are falling into place. And the US Treasury Department, under Scott Bessent, is actively talking about using stablecoins to provide additional buyers for US Treasury market and to help spread the dominance of the dollar worldwide, right? Using them as a platform for distribution of the dollar. So you got the perfect storm for stablecoins. But that's not all. It's not all that's happening right now. You also had in the past day, Morgan Stanley and Charles Schwab announced that they're going to support spot crypto trading in the near future. I think it was next 12 months for one of them, and I don't remember which one, but in the near future. So now people have better access to speculative assets, probably in their retirement accounts, and new buyers, right? Now, the problem is we've seen with ETFs that there's far more buyers for Bitcoin than there are for, well, anything else. But long run, as a lot of these projects get better fundamentals, it's going to be an important source of inflows. And I think on some level, it's a tacit acceptance or endorsement by traditional finance that this asset class is here to stay. And with every new integration like this that happens, the chances of future regulators rolling this back becomes less, because once you've got people with all these things in their retirement accounts, once you've got businesses that are integrating stablecoins as payments, rolling that back and making it illegal, it's going to be a much, much tougher political sell than it would have been had it never been implemented in the first place. And so who are the winners and losers of this? Well, first, let's talk about the winners. Start with the positives. Tether, right? No way to invest in Tether if you're a normal person like me, but Tether is a big winner. USDC, number 2 stablecoin, maybe has somewhat less good distribution, especially in the parts of the developing world where these stablecoins are actually used, but still pretty good distribution, and they're IPOing soon, so there may be a way to invest in them. Coinbase, which actually receives a lot of the profit from Circle, from USDC. Coinbase, they have their exchange business as well, but you could invest in the growth of stablecoins through them. Now, the problem with that is it's just a part of Coinbase's business. They've got their exchange, they've got Base, they've got other things. I would argue that Morgan Stanley and Schwab adding crypto is possibly a risk for Coinbase, because I think there's probably a lot of people who they already buy stocks through those platforms, and once they add crypto support, they may just buy crypto, Bitcoin, ETH through there as well, rather than using Coinbase. They may use Coinbase because it's one of the only ways to actually buy it in the United States right now. I mean, if you want to actually withdraw it, there's reasons for that, but I don't think that's most people, right? I think as of now, most people, they just want to hold it. They don't actually, they're not using DeFi, unfortunately, as creator of Dynamo DeFi. I would rather they actually be using it, but we live in reality here on this channel. And then, so Coinbase, it's mixed. Big losers. Well, one loser, you're probably not thinking about this if you are deep in the crypto industry, but I think Vanguard is a big loser here. They missed the Bitcoin ETFs big time. Fastest growing ETFs ever, any industry. And they missed it. Not only that, they didn't support people buying it who had Vanguard accounts. And so they missed that. And then now they're going to miss spot crypto too. Yeah, I mean, maybe they'll change their tune. Maybe they'll enable it, but Schwab and Morgan Stanley are enabling it. Vanguard, I know it's not really their thing, but no signs that they're going to enable or integrate crypto trading, and they're going to miss the boat on that. And as we've seen, finance assets, they're all going to end up moving on chain, and the sooner they actually move onto those rails, the better. And so what happens when you don't just have Bitcoin, Ethereum, and a few $100 billion stablecoins? I say that as if it's nothing, but it's really a lot. But what happens when you don't just have those, when you have trillions of dollars of tokenized assets, including some that are real businesses, that the only way to get access to their equity is on chain, or the only way to get access to their credit markets is on chain? It would be wise for these platforms to learn how to integrate crypto before that happens. What happens when it becomes the norm to have ETFs run programmatically through tokenized assets, or to run shareholder votes on chain? So let's talk about what's going to happen over the next few years. You've already got stablecoin supply increasing like crazy. And when you hear stablecoins, really think it's fiat coming on chain, right? That's all it is. And that's a lot of reasons why a lot of people don't like stablecoins, but it is what it is, right? Like I said, we're living in reality. And you already got treasuries starting to come on chain too. That's the fastest growing real world asset, as people call it. Next, you're starting to see people move down the risk curve. You've got private credit coming on chain, and that's starting to get interesting, because if you're an American like me, you have pretty easy access to fiat, you have easy access to treasuries. Maybe you don't have access to investing in private credit. And so suddenly that's a new thing you can actually access because of tokenization. And then you're going to start to see equities come on chain. And you're going to see first public equities, and then you're probably going to see private equity in some form come on chain. Read Larry Fink's annual letter to his shareholders. CEO, founder of BlackRock. He talks about how private equity can be tokenized and actually made available to more people on chain. I think it's noble. I mean, I don't know how I feel about the industry becoming basically TradFi with new payment rails and being dominated by players like BlackRock. But I guess I suppose on one hand, it was always going to happen this way with tokenization, and on the other hand, there's still a lot you can do with crypto that I think will allow the original cypherpunk ideals to thrive when the time comes. And maybe we'll talk about that more in a future video. But to wrap things up, you're going to have stablecoin supply easily go over $1 trillion. I don't even think $1 trillion is a question at this point. It's going to go over $1 trillion. It's probably going to go to like $5 or $10 trillion. You're going to see hundreds of billions of dollars of other types of assets come on chain. And then that opens up a whole new world of applications that you can build, right? Here's just a few thoughts. So for example, GoFundMe, right? You've got GoFundMe, you've got Give, Send, Go, which is uncensorable, or uncensored, I should say, version of GoFundMe. But at the end of the day, if you're using traditional payment rails, banks, they could shut down your payments if they wanted to, right? You're still at their mercy. So what I would like to do, what I would love to see someone do, what I would love to do myself, you know, if life allowed me, would be to make something like a GoFundMe that actually used crypto payment rails, Bitcoin, and stablecoins, and then make it a truly uncensorable. So there's no option to be censored. Or if that's not really your thing, here's a cool example. So DeFi Llama, where I do growth. Recently we announced a subscription product, and we used our Llama Pay product for it. And the cool thing about Llama Pay is one way you can set it up is you deposit money. The money then gets put into Aave, lent out, and that yield from the money goes towards your subscription. So using programmable money on chain, crypto, stablecoins, you could in theory build an application where people deposit stablecoins, gets converted to on-chain private credit or T-bills, whichever they chose, and then the yield from that they can allocate towards funding subscriptions. So you could call it buy now, pay never. Just one example of the many cool things you could actually do now that we have the combination of real assets and programmatic money on chain. But I think I've said enough about that for now. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe. And until next time, this is Dynamo DeFi.